Hi, welcome back. You're watching Michelle with Michelle This Life. Today's video is a very special video. I'm very honored to have Julia Ember on my channel to talk about her new book and just to answer a few interview questions. I will also be showing you her cover reveal that is released today on September 1st. So it's a very exciting time, and I had such a great time working with Julia Ember, and it was an honor getting to see the book cover before its release, and it's just been a really enjoyable experience. Julia Ember is the author of Unicorn Tracks, and I read this book earlier in the year and reviewed it, and I really loved it. She has a new trilogy coming out, and that's what this interview is about. The first book in the trilogy is called Tiger's Watch. The name of the trilogy is Ashes of Gold. Tiger's Watch release date is August 2017. I'll leave a Goodreads link down below if you want to go check out more information about the book outside of what Julia is going to tell us about it today.
Hey, I'm Julia Ember. I've been invited by Michelle to come on her channel and talk a little bit about my new upcoming book, which is called The Tiger's Watch. Michelle kindly put together some interview questions about this new book, and I decided to kind of film it here so that everybody could see the painting, which is behind me. All of my book covers so far have been based on paintings. If you kind of look swiveling around with me, you can see the one for Unicorn Tracks as well. Not very well because I'm not very good at filming with my laptop.
Question number 1, I asked Julia what inspires her to sit down and start writing.
Honestly, most of it is travel. I've talked about this a little bit with Unicorn Tracks and again with Tiger's Watch. And you know, even if I'm not traveling to the place that ends up inspiring a setting or a character or anything like that, I think the act of getting out of my own environment is really important to me. So I wrote a lot when I was in Copenhagen recently. I write a lot when I go home to visit my parents in the States. I wrote when I was in the caring rooms with my mom. Just the act of kind of getting out of my own day-to-day routine is really important to me.
Question number 2, what specifically inspired you to write Tiger's Watch and this trilogy?
Asked me about was specifically for Tiger's Watch what inspired me, and she asked me kind of that, and also about kind of my fascination with animals, because my first book was about unicorns and safaris, and then the second one is about tigers. So Tiger's Watch was inspired actually when I was in Myanmar with my family, and we were taking little boats in between a lot of these beautiful little towns that are all built on stilts right on the water. And even though the kind of initial setting for Tiger's Watch isn't that, just the act of kind of being somewhere where I'm not normally, and then we took hot air balloons and everything like that, and just the kind of the act of being inspired like that started me thinking on a story. So anyway, the other kind of main inspiration is my cats, and I know that sounds really strange, but I am a massive cat lady. I have 2 cats, Sirius and Luna. If you ever look on my Instagram, they are everywhere. They're everywhere. They kind of taken over my life. They're now taking over my books. So yeah, I wrote about a giant cat, and I hope that Katala is significantly more interesting than my cats who are flopped over there on my sofa right now.
Question number 3, what was the biggest difference between writing a standalone and now writing a trilogy?
The major differences has been kind of the complexity of plot. When I conceived of Tiger's Watch, I kind of thought about 3 very distinct different characters. And by the time I, kind of fleshed out all their stories and really got into their motivations, I found that my plotting document was almost as long as the manuscript for Unicorn Tracks. So by the time that was the case, I kind of had to concede that I had a lot more material than just for one book. And I was lucky that when I pitched Tiger's Watch to my editor at Harmony Inc., she was quite happy for me to make it into a true trilogy. So that's kind of how that came about. It's, as a trilogy, much darker, I would say, than Unicorn Tracks, which is ultimately quite a happy book. It's a much more magic-centered fantasy. The main character, Tashi, is a spy. They have been trained their whole life to use a magically bonded tiger in order to hunt and kill people. So, the magical bonds in this book, they're quite dark, and the societies that come into conflict with each other are both quite war-geared. So that is one of the major differences, I would say.
Question number 4, Unicorn Tracks was a beautiful Own Voices story. How do you feel about Own Voices?
Next thing that she asked me about was the LGBT kind of representation in my books. Unicorn Tracks, which is my first, features an FF couple. And that for me is own voices because I am a bisexual author. I have I'm polyamorous, but my primary partner is a woman. And, you know, I've dated a lot of women throughout my life. Tashi as a character is non-binary, which means that they don't identify with either gender. They're very, very adamant that the concept of shouldn't apply to them. They don't like to adhere to expectations. They don't like to have expectations for what their own body should grow to become. And they don't strictly identify with one gender or the other. And that for me, you know, that it's not me. I'm very, very femme. One of my partners is non-binary, so I'm lucky in the sense that, you know, I have someone who's very close to me that I've been able to ask and you know, get to read for sensitivity. I've also been very lucky with some of the contacts that I've made, that they've been able to kind of answer some of my additional questions about how other people react to their sexuality and their gender. So that's kind of about Tashi. I think that, you know, without giving away too many spoilers, the fact that they are non-binary does come into the story in a pretty important way. And that is something that I really wanted to incorporate because I didn't want it to be that, you know, I just decided that my protagonist was going to be non-binary, and then not have that really be something that was important about them. So it is important about them in the story.
Number 5 is, what is the process you go through for your cover designs?
My covers, as you can see so far, have been watercolor paintings. They were done by the absolutely brilliant Megan Moss, who runs Mossy Stone Studios, and she is fantastic, and she listens to me, and she just creates these like marvelous masterpieces of art, and I'm really, really grateful to her for everything that she's done with the book so far. Yeah, she's fantastic. So, you know, I think she'd be able to speak a lot more about the actual artistic process than me, but most of it has just been, I contact her with a prompt. My publisher, I'm very lucky, has been on board with me using Megan from the beginning, and then we kind of go from there and talk about the characters. She sometimes gets to ask questions about the manuscripts, and then from there we kind of develop a concept together. So yeah, in order to keep this video from being 800 minutes long, I'm probably going to stop there, but thank you for listening to me babble on and dealing with my shaky camera and everything like that. So thanks to Michelle again for having me. Bye!
Well, that was Julia Ember, and I hope to be checking out Tiger's Watch when it comes out next August. Let me know down below if you plan to check it out as well, or if you've read Unicorn Tracks. And I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Remember to check out the links in the down bar if you want to know more about Julia, Harmony Ink Press, which is the publishing group, or if you want to know more about her books. See you guys later. Bye!